So I just read about Ben Franklin creating the first library, and like the idea was that he was part of this club called the Junta or Junto. I know Junta, it's like with in Spanish, but it's also a junta, like a armed like junta, right? So I think they were kind of the resistance, but it was a philosophy club, and like basically, like he said, hey, we should all just put our all of our books in the same building together, and we can share each other's books, and that way we can read each other's books. And then eventually they took their books home, and he didn't like that, so he decided to start the first subscription library. So he has to go to a scrivener for something, and we know that he actually literally talks about scribbling as like the act of writing. He calls it scribbling. Like he says these are very old writings. Like at some point, yeah. So like he's basically says a lot of what I just said has like family stuff. You won't even understand what I'm talking about because I have family anecdotes in there that you can understand the rest of the book. So we're looking for words that are weird, and we're trying to figure out the way that they word things. Like I never intend to wrap my talents in a napkin. They talk about the fund of sense, which is where ideas come from. A break from the wind is a calm of wind. Like these are things that like we might see in the Egyptian language, or at least like the wording, the structure of the words. Malefactor is a criminal. I think they were like making him add words because he was like the only. He says there were 3 printers, and it's a terrible business. Like he has people living with him. They're called inmates. So a tenant used to be an inmate back then, and the inmates are purposely like trying to get him to marry their daughter, and so like they're like leaving him alone with her like after supper and stuff like that. So they're like, hey, you should marry him, and he's like, well, you have to pay for my business because like I have debt and I don't want any debt. And then like they didn't have the money, so what do they say? So above the blue is where it says Mrs. Godfrey projected a match for me with a relation's daughter. Took opportunities of bringing us often together till a serious courtship on my part ensued. The girl being in herself very deserving, but like so like the way that they were like she's saying like Miss Godfrey's daughter is a relation's daughter. And I don't like I'm going to go back to that, but real quick. So he refers to Miss Reed's husband as Miss Reed's wife, and he like literally says something about like I am being precise in what I'm saying, and like her husband was over in England, and like that match was indeed looked upon as invalid, a preceding wife being said to be living in England, but this could not easily be proved because of the distance. So she had this husband, and he like basically Franklin goes to England, like and that's why it's like the greatest error of his life or something, leaving Miss Reed, and then she gets married to this guy, and then like they're not even living together, and like he just like ends up getting into debt, so he just leaves and goes to England, and Franklin doesn't have a wife at that point. So he tells them that they should mortgage their house to the loan office, and then you can your daughter can marry me. Yeah. But they heard the printing business is not very profitable, and I don't have page 55 right now. Unfortunately, I have a screenshot of this, though. It says, Miss Godfrey project a match for me with a relation to daughter. And she says, he says, I was forbidden the house, and the daughter shut up. So, like, they shut her up, is how they're saying, like, they refused to let me see her, and I was disallowed from, I can't see it because my finger's in front of it, disallowed from seeing their daughter. I resolved to not have any more inmates because of it, because they live together. So he refers to a fish as attended by other fish because it swims with the shark. So the shark is attended by these fish. I don't know what diminutive. I think people know that word. Diminutive. I don't know if crabs have eggs, but they're embryos. I set up watching the eclipse. So like that was kind of when he realized that science was real, because he knew the eclipse was going to come, and he looked up at the sky and there was an eclipse in the sky, and there's nothing like back then when like those people can tell you there's an eclipse. I don't know what a windlass is, but it might be a sail back then. Okay, I'll bet a sail's a sail. So tis means it is, and a flock is a group of flying things, I think, but you never know. I think thrice means 3 times, but it says it will swallow a living eel thrice before it will stay in its stomach. Like, what does that mean? It's talking about a bird doing it. It uses the term universal joy, and in Greek, I can see that word. Like, I can see it, like, showing up, like, with that everything word. A tuft of trees, I don't know why. They bade us welcome, like, it was a way of saying, like, they like, said to us, welcome. He says the sky looks gay with here and there a silver cloud. Like gay sounds beautiful, very confusing to me. Ravish, excite. The prospect of almost being there ravishes us. Like we're about to arrive and it ravishes us because we've been at sea for so long. Someone says something about his common life, Deborah. That's not him. That's a comment from someone else. So who was the other girl? Miss Reed is what I said, and then Miss Reed comes back into the story as his helpmate after he like tells that girl's family, like, you guys have to like give me like 100 shillings or sterling or whatever. I don't know. I didn't look up sundry for sundry alterations. I came back and found sundry alterations. So the hands are the employees. Like, they're not like the slaves. They're not the servants. Like, they're the employees, because he trains the hands in how to do printing, and then this guy turns into an asshole and like basically fires him, or like they get into like a fight, and like he ends up quitting after he's like basically fired, and then like but then like the person like comes and talks to him, is like, yeah, that guy like is in debt, like he's having money problems, and like they're not allowed to print money. And like that's something I learned, is like that like Benjamin Franklin was like pretty much the first money printer, but he wasn't. Like, there was another money printer, and like they sucked, and Ben Franklin trained under like 5 different printers in England, and so like he was like making the presses, and like the reason he could train under them is because he was a writer, because he was a comedian. I think that's what, like, how the governor like got him the job, like, and he didn't even know he got a job. Like, governor like sent like his Silence Dogood writings that he was writing, talking shit to his brother, to England, and then they were like, oh man, we gotta like get that guy here, and then he left anyways. But he sounds like they had girls that were trying to keep him there too. But he liked Miss Reed. All right, so the equipment is the stock, like because he says like he like ordered, he like, I'll furnish the stock. The equipment, pleurisy, my distemper, was a pleurisy which nearly carried me off. I don't even know what a pleurisy is. He refers to dram drinking, which tells me that like that's binge drinking. But don't we know the word binge? We already figured out that the word for binge is binge, I think. Dram makes me think of like sickness. Drink until you're sick. Maybe that's sick, because like Dramamine is for seasickness. When he builds something, he contrives it. I executed the whole to satisfaction. Like, I did the project to satisfaction. I was scarce 15 when I bought my first dog. That's just how I wrote my own sentence. He refers to the felicity of life. So I was scarcely 15. Like, I was barely 15 when I bought my first dog, or when I learned how to drive. You could say that. We found a house to hire. We found a house to rent, would be how we'd say it, but he refers to it as hiring. Pay instead of pay for, I don't know, we already have a word for pay. So I think that he's using the word pay instead of instead, like instead of, I don't know. I have no idea what I'm saying there. I'm sorry. So a countryman has been a farmer, and it got confusing to me a long time ago. And we've talked about the word country, like, which it's not necessarily a country. And I think it has to do with like the earth, because like he's talking about like it's good to be back in the country, which is not. It's like a colony, and they have a word for it. But he's talking about the country, like it's like back in the land. And I feel like if you think about Egypt, and we're talking about the word D, like it's called country bread. And I think it's super confusing when you're talking about like baladi, bread of the country, but like could it be like the country is like there's no other country back then, which is like a different concept of a country. I'm not sure.